for me, I'm very curious. Like, if we're fortunate, if we're privileged enough to transition to move this into the industry, right? Like to take Furious and Fat Cat as a brand, as a product, as a show, and we're doing all kind of things behind the scenes right now. Good conversations are happening. What does that look like going from what we have a very minimal product, one animator, to 15 or 10, or like what does that look like? And I'm also curious about if we'll be able to bring our team with us, right? Like Vanek. Like I would love to bring Vanek. You know, like I want to. Man, I really do want to give people opportunity. You know, I don't know what, but I don't know what that's going to look like, right? Like how much power we'll have if it happens. Like it's all very premature at this point. You know, like we're just trying to get there. But yeah, I'm just curious. Like, will they just bring on a studio? Will it, we have something that works in terms of the art style and the 2D, the art style, people like it, right? So let's not change it too much. So I'm just curious about that, how that could go, with the animators specifically,
Jack, you feel like chiming in on that?
I mean, that's a that's a little Pandora's box. I mean, it could go any way, any number of ways, any number of ways that you want it to. I mean, obviously you can produce an animation for almost, I don't know what you're paying your current animator, if you're paying him at all.
Yeah.
Obviously
we paying them. Yeah. The only one get paid at this point.
Pierre's like, hell yeah.
But obviously, you can produce an animation for very little cost if you've got a lot of sweat equity behind it, and your scope, as you've been talking about, your scope is small, but and it can go all the way up to hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars. But I mean, the nice thing about what you guys are doing is that it is scalable in the short term, in the near future, in that dealing with kind of a limited set of characters, and there's a lot of technology. And Carlos can talk about some stuff too that fits exactly the style that you guys are going for, especially for like webtoons and a lot of like Big Mouth and our cartoon president. Like these are all things that are like now hitting mainstream that are utilizing these kind of more simplistic animation, and it's really all about the writing and the characters.
Right.
So, I mean, my advice would be, get yourself someone who's effectively an art director. That would be sort of the visual vision for it. If that's one of you, that's great. If not, find someone to head that up, because they can assemble a team under them, hopefully in the most minimal way possible. You're probably going to get a lot of folks like Vanek, like you already have, who can do a lot of different things. So, you can start with a small team, and it's kind of like basically look at what you have now with one guy, and you can kind of exponentially multiply that. So it's like if you have three guys, it's not like you get 3 times the power. It's almost like you get 30 times, because they can kind of all collaborate and build off it. And you got each person focuses on a different realm of it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, that's an amazing answer. And I like you saying, the art director, I think that's key, because that's really good, that's key. I always defer to the experts, right? And so I need someone who can communicate with the artists, with the animators, right? Someone who's in that world. I mean, typically is the art director that guy, like he used to animate and he understands the
and he might even still animate.
Yeah, the art direction tends to kind of come from a lot of various fields. It depends on obviously what part of the industry you're in, but a lot of those guys come up from illustration. Some of them come from animation. Some of them are really more interested just in actual direction, but they sort of came up from the visual side of it.
Sure.
But the nice thing about the whole, and that's a very loose term. I mean, every company, every setup kind of uses these titles very differently, but that type of art direction role is really good, because it sounds like you guys have a pretty strong character voice and writing voice. So you want somebody that's going to kind of helm up the visual aspect of it and give that its own unique flair. And then of course that somebody is going to be able to tell you exactly what you can do for the most money and or for the least amount of money, biggest bang for your buck, and kind of where to distribute the work. I mean, that's something that even the big studios do. I mean, the show that I work on, that was something that we did early on. We were casted this very low tiered budget show. And in doing that, it's like, everybody thinks like, oh, we have no money, that's the worst news in the world. But not really. It's kind of like a nice creative box you've been given, right? And so the very first thing you decide is like, okay, with this budget, what can we do? And what components and creative looks, styles, scope of writing, like all those things play, like how can we use that to our advantage and really push the limited budget we may have. So like in our case, it was like we really pushed the like painterly kind of cartoon style because it was a little faster and cheaper to do, but we could make it look bigger. So an art director is somebody that would be able to kind of advise you on that. Like if you guys are really just focused on a cast of characters, then maybe you tailor your entire structure towards that. If maybe it's more about exploring worlds and you want to get them out of the couch, then maybe you got somebody who has solutions as to how to optimize, scope of world.
Yeah. Would that help them to have with that art director role, Jack? Would that help them then, if they have their main focus on the characters, would one that can like help visualize, the backgrounds or be more visual development with that, to work with the animator on a smaller team like that, art director gets in there. Maybe it's the art director that has an illustrative background, like you're saying. So then it's more of like they're like that director of photography or layout, and like making one section of the animation look better, which is maybe backgrounds and all that good stuff, and then having that visual language there would then start feeding into the characters, lighting and all that good stuff. You see what I'm saying? Like in order to fit them into where they have a small team now, what part are they lacking in? Maybe that side of the visual development could help, and then they could show them on a path. Okay, this is how we can make it bigger, but we can start by building up the background since your animator is already on point. Yeah, and that would influence the animator. I don't know. I was just thinking. A lot of times art directors and stuff and that does a lot of visual development with that, and starts with like the scenery and look, and that tells a story in itself also, But.
Yeah, we put the episodes out there. We've had over 2 million impressions. We've reached 1.2 million people. Mm-hmm. And so we imagine the comments that we get, right? So people are very sophisticated, particularly on Instagram. Instagram is a platform for a lot of creators, right? Mm-hmm. You see, to Facebook, we're starting to learn like the differences of the audiences, and so Instagram people will really dig in. And so one of the times, because it's just one guy, and we don't have background artists and these different things, so he'll take some shortcuts, and then we notice it, and we talk about it, Pierre and I. But listen, we're limited, right? We get it, but at the same time, we're like, hey. We got to put our best foot forward because we're really serious about this. We're really pushing this. So the audience I never heard of iReady graphics before. I had to Google it. And then
choose your next words wisely.
Huh? What's that?
Choose your next words wisely. Because if you say anything about going to Fiverr or anything, like we can wrap this up right now.
No. Somebody commented and was like, iReady graphics, but I like everything else, right? And so I was like, what are they talking about, And I'm like, oh, right, like they're talking about the back. They're like looking, like our audience really looks at the background, every element of the art. Yeah. And we're a startup, but there's still, it looks good, so they're like really scrutinizing this stuff.
Yeah, right.
And so I guess like what you're always saying is like in terms of expanding the world, and we'll be able to have more attention to detail to that little stuff. Like in Sick Day, we told them to put this. We had an episode later on called Golden Burger. In the hood, they're waiting like 3 hours for this burger. You know what I mean? And like the Furious can't believe it.
It happens.
Yeah, So we told them to put a soda cup on the nightstand. It was a really nice touch. Like these had these little Easter eggs there. Mm-hmm. Right. So we were doing that in the early episodes, and we sort of got away from it. Because obviously it's more labor intensive to do that kind of thing, but it paid off. That's our most. Not only is the script, is funny and whatever, but visually, I think it's our most popular episode. Not only because it's a funny script, but also visually. Mm-hmm. I mean, you got Fat Cat's hoodie on the ground. You got books. You got, what I mean? It's a lot that's there.
Set dressing, yeah, it's good.
Yeah, it's there. It's there. And so.
And those are some of the things, kind of like what Jack was talking about. Your creative director would be able to help with that stuff. and help with, number one, continuity, number two, dropping in some of those little clever things that and it's those things, kind of like when you're watching response videos for rap songs, right? You got all these people breaking down all the bars, right? Oh, he said this and that and this and that. Those are things that the general public don't really pick up, especially when they're listening to the song one way through. They're just enjoying the beat, whatever. Maybe they catch a word or two. But to have someone breaking down the bars to say, oh, he said this, he was referring to that, and then this over here, blah, 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 right? So if that makes sense.
Makes perfect.